Right, so I was thinking if we just did the Revan's Revenge stuff first, and then we did the First Order. Hey everyone, welcome to Corey Loses, where today I guess this is kind of Monday Night Modding. It's not necessarily modding, but it is on Monday night for once, so...
I don't think you actually started it on YouTube. Oh.
You ruined the joke.
Yikes.
Banned. That's it. You're fired from the team.
Let's just restart the stream. Let's do another intro. Let's do the clap sync.
All right, so stuff. So you threw me off. Now everything's ruined. But hello there, everyone, and welcome to Corey Loses for a weird edition of Monday Night Modding, where we are not really modding. We're going to be testing some of the stuff that's coming in the 0.6 update for Fall of the Republic. That's going to be coming on Thursday, as well as a little bit in Thrawn's Revenge. It's not as done yet, but we'll probably pop in and check on some stuff towards the end of this stream. But we're going to be looking primarily at the space reworks that have been going on, which is more or less a rebalancing of every space stat in the mod, changing how the damage and armor works, as well as recalculating all the weapons and damage values for projectiles, for ships, for literally everything. So there's probably going to be a lot of questions of like specifically, is this ship better or worse? And it's hard to answer those because the whole system is different. So we'll try to get into as much as we can here. But joining me is a selection, a veritable smorgasbord of Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic devs, Empire War Expanded devs, including some of the ones who were most involved in this particular project. And the person who did a lot of the planning on that would be the first one to be introduced right now, Evil Bob the Bob.
Hello.
And also involved heavily in the planning and implementation there, Nolan Starr.
Hello.
Jorrit did a lot of the implementation as well as some of the planning, but he could not be here tonight. So Jorrit, if you want to say hi. All right. And we also have Valerie, who, in addition to some of the stat planning, also helped devise a selection of classes and some other stuff like that, which helps organize things within the factions and gives us an idea of where or how full certain roles are in different factions.
Hello, hello.
And here, just because we like them, are Mr. Puerto Rican.
Yo, what's going on?
And I believe Honest joined.
Yeah,
I did. Hello.
Say your name so I don't have to again.
Hannes.
There we go. So when I mispronounce it again, just imagine I said what he just said. But yeah, so the stream won't be frozen anymore. I was just tabbed out so I could make sure I got everyone who was in the call. Other people may join and leave as we progress here, but we're going to mostly be doing this in instant action. Hopefully nothing broke in the time since this morning when I last checked, because that can happen. Well, if it did, then we'd just get a stream fixing it.
Then it will literally be Monday night.
Yeah. But first, thank you, Rampaging Rhino, for the £2 donation. Great start, guys. Slow clap. I'm not Charlie, I don't. And also thank you, Rampaging Rhino, for the £10 donation. It goes on to DP20 Nerf, I presume. Also, all you guys are awesome.
Don't set it to Admiral.
Yeah, I already changed that. I admire all of you. You have redefined this game.
Answering the chat question, Home 1 is scaled to 3.2 kilometers per the movie model.
Yeah.
Not the horrible mess of Sourcebook and other depictions that don't actually look anything like the movie ship, that give a different length.
The clearly wrong 1,200 meters. Alright, so you'll also notice the instant action map has changed a bit in that it is based on Rishi's Galactic Conquest map. But any top level stuff we want to mention for goals with the rework, first off, something we all discussed beforehand was trying to change the pacing a little bit because ships would fall apart really fast, and that's one of the complaints people who tend to prefer other mods tended to have. We wanted to make sure we didn't like slow it down to nothing, but we wanted to ensure that you had a chance to react when your ships were dying. But that was one of the main tenets of what we were trying to do.
I think from the development side, a lot of it was just making things make more sense. So previously, EWX had a kind of mishmash of vanilla and custom damage and armor types, which meant that it was difficult to say exactly what one ship would do to another in a lot of circumstances. So on the development end, we've cleaned a lot of that up. So now, in general, larger ships will tend to have somewhat heavier armor, which will absorb more damage. And similarly, their shields will be able to absorb more damage. But that also means we're able to keep the actual numbers to a reasonable level, so we don't have to have 3 million hit points on a Superstar Destroyer or something. Nolan, do you want to
Guess
say
what
anything?
broke? The fighters aren't spawning.
That's fine. That makes it easier to test the ships, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
coming
actually,
from-
sorry. Before anything, Nolan, I will mention that something that you had worked on before that the reworks finally got in properly is that fighters now die in a reasonable amount of time. So, experienced Fall of the Republic and Thrawn's Revenge players may have noticed that in by certain battles, I mean all battles. In all battles, it would take forever and a half for large dogfights to end, and now that should be a bit quicker. But Pox, if you want to join as well. Yeah, so we'll deal with fighters
I'm not sure
later.
if the fighter thing is just an instant action, because I'm pretty sure it got cleaned up syntax-wise and everything before, and it works in just add-on.
Well, yeah, earlier today I fixed some syntax errors in the game object library that were breaking it, and unless something else has gone back and broken it again since then.
Based on commits, I don't think so.
All right. So here we have Venator, a Victory, and a Lucrehulk. This is the Lucrehulk Battle Carrier, which is the second of what are now 3 and will eventually be 4 types of Lucrehulks. We have the auxiliary warship, which is the weaker end of it, I believe.
Yeah, it's a sub-faction. It's just in the instant action thing, because it was thematic and people wanted the TPM model Lucrehulking because it's in the movies.
Yeah. It's apparently not currently in instant action. But
There are 3 on the build bar.
Yeah, the battleship is there.
no, I'm saying the auxiliary warship is you can build the thing, but it doesn't actually. Oh wait, no, they're
Oh,
all
it
just in
doesn't
the middle.
actually
My bad.
Yeah,
I see them now.
there's 3
The
icons.
donuts are spanning out. It's actually kind of nice. Well,
It's
we're
not a
going to need to clear
it's
those
actually a full
out.
donut now because they're on top of each other.
Upgrade complete.
That's fun.
Lovely.
I mean, my battle strategy now for when I encounter those battle Lucrehulks, I just press Alt F4.
Upgrade in progress.
That's great. Works every time.
Upgrade complete.
All right, so you'll notice
This
the
is-
battle carrier has more hard
This
points.
is kind of hard to look at the stats for when they're all like that.
Yeah, that's why the Praetor's here.
That'll solve that.
That's called cleanup.
Oh boy.
Like when we're talking about cleaning up the code for the mod, what we usually mean is we're dropping a Praetor in it, and yeah.
Everything just sorts itself out.
Yeah, so Lucrehulks are a lot more scary now. This Venator is dying to these 3. But
I would say Praetors are also definitely a lot
Yeah.
more scary. And in general, an important thing of Fall of the Republic is that most Republic ships lack ion cannons. And ion cannons are pretty important now for helping you take out shields. Either that or proton torpedoes, usually in the form of bombers. So the Praetor having ion cannons makes it especially useful. Sorry, Hans, I think I...
Cut me off now.
Do you have any of your silly questions you wanted to ask to play the audience surrogate?
Not yet. I'll think of something. You just keep on monologuing. You're great at it.
Thanks, I think.
all right, let's get an Invincible in here.
Looks like the instant action tooltip for the Carrick is using the TR version, not the Father Republic one.
Disgraceful.
Okay, that's it.
But something else you may be noticing with the single lasers right now is something that Valerie and I have been working on a bit, redoing a lot of the particles and projectiles. You'll see a little bit of early work on explosions in this, though that is less tested. And I didn't even know that the one change I made was in game yet, but I noticed it in this battle so far. But yeah, so you'll see a pretty different both texture and model for the lasers.
Yeah, it should be much more easier to read.
Yeah, there's been obviously. I personally have had issues with laser readability in EAWX, so I'm glad that we've been improving on that. Looks like both of the Lucre Hulks. Oh, they're starting to split.
No, by both you mean 3. There's actually 3 there.
Oh god. Good thing that you send in Praetor, the natural enemy of the Lucre Hulks. Let the natural selection take its course.
Alright, I gotta turn you up on this.
Yeah,
Oh,
wait.
Pox is here.
Yay!
Hello, Pox.
So, with the fighters, do we have a me problem?
I don't think it's a you problem. I'm pretty sure it should be working, and there's like 7 different things that break it for instant action, so I'll just have to take a look later. Unless someone
It's
takes a
probably
look right now.
type
We'll
problem.
retrieve it.
I mean, at least there aren't any syntax errors in Projectile, right?
Yeah, we've been conducting German experiments again.
Apparently.
So one of the new things that the instant action mode has is this target dummy. So on top of the ships you can spawn for either faction, and you can actually change the faction you're spawning ships for, which I guess is a more exciting thing than the target dummy. But this has different health values and armor values for the different armor types. So if you want to see how a particular ship or weapon set will do against a super capital ship, and you don't want to have it actually fight it, you can just spawn this bad boy in and see how that does. We could, if we really wanted to be fun right now, we could set this to spawn units for the Republic
Upgrade complete.
and get a subjugator.
Upgrade complete.
And now we have a Republic subjugator. So if you want to do mirror matches of anything, it's a lot easier now in that it's possible. If you want to do different coalitions because you want to set up a couple historical battles that had like one of the many times the New Republic used mixes of captured Imperial ships and their own stuff, that's a thing you can do now. So there's a lot to explore this new balancing without having to actually play in GC, which you can also do. But if you want to get a feel for how everything is, this exists now.
So you can play fully as the CIS or the Republic in the sandbox.
Well, there will be an option later to actually choose your faction up front, which is less of a problem now that you can change who you're spawning for. But you can, if you want to do play as the CIS versus CIS, you can do that. If you want to do Republic versus Republic, if you want to do a mix of both. If you want to have two sides that have a Praetor and a Subjugator, to see which Praetor and Subjugator kills the other ones first, that's a thing you can do if you want. But yeah.
Guess you can also show off the new Lucre Hulk now, since the other ones are about to die.
Yeah. So we're going to show the Lucre Hulk battleship, which was like the battle carrier and battleship were sort of like melded together in the last system. But now there's this, and there's going to be the droid control ship at some point when we have a better idea of what we want that to do. But let's get you spawned for CIS. And if you want to curse their sudden but inevitable betrayal,
Upgrade in progress.
I think that'll work.
Upgrade complete.
Yeah, it resets it.
Will the ion cannons on the Malevolence be fixed so it doesn't do damage to hard points?
Well, last I checked, it doesn't do any damage to hardpoints
Yeah.
ever anyway.
Hardpoints, yeah.
That was presumably... So that was probably a function of the difficult-to-see projectiles. It was probably just the subjugator's
Very
weapons
hard to
dealing
see
damage to the target.
Small turbo lasers.
Yeah.
Does the Ion Blast still target fighters? I think I've seen it done that.
It shouldn't.
Alright.
It's hard to tell without any fighters in this match.
Personally suspect asked, are the fighters to scale compared to big ships? Also, do the IC and Tector have any red and graces? So we have always had the markings. That was in the previous release. Fighters, we generally have scaled up ×2, I think. Otherwise, they'd be way too small and invisible. And then there was another question from Hazard Lizard. Will the new projectile textures affect the FPS too much? Really like them. They're higher resolution, and there's a couple more meshes in the model files for it, but it shouldn't impact FPS because generally Empire Expanded is not GPU gated as it is. It's more CPU gated, and we're trying to do things with fighter squadrons to make that better. So overall, you should generally see better performance, actually.
Yeah, the ideas for a lot of our particle reworks have been in the works for a while, so we've been discussing ways to keep the GPU costs relatively low, especially compared to other mods.
I have to say, as I've tested on my low-end PC, and the performance is skyrocketed, at least on my end.
Yeah, actually, that's something we should mention for Galactic Conquest as well. The only thing I would consider a huge problem for Fall of the Republic in the first release 0.5, that the Subjugator just fucking annihilated the shields on this guy. But the
How did
that happen due to the damage? That doesn't.
So I think those values are off. But yeah, so the biggest...
What projectiles is that using?
It's just the ship ion pulse. I'll go check that.
It's
See,
not
this is why we
like-
do these things.
50,000 damage.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna keep reading some questions from the comments then.
But
so
the biggest and only major problem we really had with the first release was performance on the Galactic level. And that was largely because of AI pathing. The biggest contributor to that was the fact that CIS subfactions, when they're pathing through each other, every planet is considered connected with corruption. So Bob has changed it so that only adjacent planets are considered valid targets for them, which, for one thing, helps them in their target selection. So the immediate Banking Clan attack from the northwest to Rishi in the bottom of the map, that doesn't happen anymore. It makes the sub-factions a lot more prone to go after the factions, the planets they're supposed to be, but it also has improved performance a ton. It's now on par or about on par with what you get in Thrawn's Revenge. So, and we're pretty happy to keep it there. There's also been some improvements to the between week lag spike that you'd see when all the influence and stuff gets calculated. So that shouldn't be as noticeable of a jump anymore either.
Mission log updated.
Okay, yes. So, regarding the ion pulse, it was in fact doing 100,000 shield damage.
That's a lot.
Blast. Yeah, it's because it had both blast area damage and projectile damage, and I think the blast area damage is what hit the because these things overlap. So I'm just going to give it only blast area damage and set it to 2,000, which is what it should be. So this is why we do these tests. You see.
Yes. Public shaming.
Yeah, of whoever wrote this. Yeah.
And yeah, you may notice the unit cap being the 300 doesn't mean the overall scale of battles changes. It's still set to the 10 ISD 1 per maximum unit cap scaling. It's like when it was changed from 60 to 100, we didn't technically double the amount of units you could have in the field. We increased the variety of smaller units and differentiation with pop.
Yeah, it just gives us more values to work with on the lower end especially. So like the first time we rescaled it, the pop cap was 40 overall and it was 4 for an ISD, which meant that you were dealing with like 7 or you, for like a Carrick or something, even if you made PopCap 1, that was the lowest you could go, a quarter of an ISD. It just gives us more room to maneuver that stuff around. It doesn't actually change how that works.
Here's the battleship doing much better now that it hasn't had its shield nuked by something broken.
Yes, and this is where you, as I said previously, imply the Alt-F4 tactics, because Jesus Christ, look at that thing.
Yeah, the PopCap has nothing to do with
Minotaurs.
recent action.
Yeah, the PopCap is generally a value of its strength. The large battle cruiser, if you hover over it, you can see that it is 98. Yeah.
So you can get approximately three of them in at a time. This is without its fighters. It's pretty effective. But it is also 20,000
the fighter spawns in lack of, in this case, would affect Republic a lot more.
Yeah,
because
Venators.
And the battleship has a lot less fighters than the carrier versions of the Lucre Hulk. It has, like, significantly less squadrons.
It still does have a lot of lasers as well, though. Like,
Yeah.
if you fly a bomber squadron across the top of any Lucre Hulk, except, I guess, the Q ship, it might survive. But most Lucre Hulks will take down bombers very, very rapidly.
But still, in this case, 6-ish bomber squadrons will still do a drop in damage.
And yeah, I kind of
it'll
implied with
also
what I said
target
earlier.
fighters.
The duels and quads and stuff, those weapon effects haven't been updated. That's why you see like still some of the old small ones. They have the new textures, but they don't have like the new rig, so they're scaled differently. They don't have the backlighting and all that. But yeah.
So yeah, Kumar is upset that the Lucre Hulk may be a little overpowered. I don't think it is, because relative to, if you mouse over a Venator, for example, Corey, and show us the PopCap of a Venator, you can bring a lot of Venators in for a single battleship.
And you'd also have more fighters fielded, a lot more fighters fielded as the Republic here.
Yes.
And the way Corey's engaging this is the worst way to engage that Lucre Hulk.
You mean just spawning units
Spread in a
exactly where
ring
they
around
are?
it.
Wow,
You want
every
to
weapon can
concentrate your
shoot.
fleet on one point. Yeah. So you engage your fleet on one narrow band and focus targets on that band. And
Yeah, because
it'll have
the
less
firing
targets
arcs
firing.
aren't like all 6 million hardpoints forward. It's like this section goes this way, this section goes that way, this section goes this way, this section goes this way. So
It's a ring of 180-degree inset turrets, laser cannons.
Right, guys, leave you.
all right, well, thanks for all your input, Pox.
Yeah.
Try to talk less
I
next
mean,
time,
I
right?
basically just watched you work with the space reworks.
Okay.
That's a reward in
don't have to
itself.
add anything anyway.
Yeah, answering comic question. Dirge is eventually slated, but he is infantry. Infantry tend to take the most amount of time to add as heroes because they require the most difficult type of asset creation, which is character models.
Yeah, we have a bunch of newly active 3D artists, and the 3 people who can do textures on the team right now, like Mr. Puerto Rican is learning, but like as far as texturing other people's work right now, it's me, Bob, and Inertial, and Bob is being eaten slowly by real life at the moment. So I've pulled Inertial off of the character model stuff. Sorry, I meant to say the people who do the character models are also the ones who do the textures incidentally. So we're busy with the massive amount of models that have been being put out recently. So it'll be a little bit before we have time to get more character models in.
Yeah, I should also note, the other reason this particular Republic fleet had trouble against Lucre Hulk is it did lack ion cannons or torpedoes. The Venators have a small number of torpedoes, but to get through the extremely powerful shields of a Lucre Hulk, you really want to have ships with ion cannons or ships with torpedoes.
You know what has torpedoes is fighters.
Yeah.
Which didn't spawn.
And the concussion missiles on the Victories are obviously very good once the shields are down. They're especially good at taking out hull health, but they're not very good at doing damage to shields. Proton torpedoes are especially good against shields. So that's the kind of missile balance that you should think about now the reworks have been done.
Basically, comparing stuff to prior versions, a lot changed, so what you may expect is going to be completely different in some cases.
Yeah. One thing that you should notice, ideally we'd have some fighters, but Corvettes are currently not like the sky cleaners they were. They're still quite effective. They're still the most accurate at hitting fighters, but they generally have a more accurate laser loadout. They're not spamming out rapid lasers at a high rate of fire. So you will generally need a few more Corvettes than you are used to cover your fleet, but the good news is they're also only generally 1 or 2 population, and with 300 pop cap you can definitely fit in plenty of Corvettes if you want a good anti-fighter screen.
300 Corvettes with no fighter spawns is also less impactful in performance than most people would expect, considering fighter counts routinely hit 600.
Yes.
And have much more annoying movers and AI.
Yeah, the other thing is that we have improved performance in tactical by reducing fighter spawns by putting more fighters into double squadrons. That's been something that's been a work in progress, and it continues. In general as well, the changes to weapons as part of the rework has tended to reduce projectile counts at least a small amount. It's also one of the big things, so previously, the way that balancing was done in EAWX was pulse-based. So essentially, if you had 10 turbo laser hardpoints representing 60 turbo lasers, each of those would fire 6 in a perfect world. That was obviously cut down repeatedly over time. But now instead, every hardpoint will tend to fire 1 or 2 pulses, and the amount of time between recharges is what determines the rate of fire. So that will tend to result in a more consistent rate of fire for every ship, which means that it's a lot easier to have your ships change target and lose relatively small amounts of damage. There's a bit less overkill.
And this is not necessarily space rework related, but it does involve spaceships, since we're looking at it right now. One of the other issues one of the things we wanted to work on with Fall of the Republic is campaign pacing.
5.
I put a lot on it.
Oh, boy.
More than I needed to.
5 Lucrehulk carriers?
I didn't actually think I put 5 Lucrehulk carriers. I think, well, this is a combination of those spawns plus the original spawns. I just put a collection of...
Have one. There's probably one on Geonosis.
I put a glut of units on all of them. Can I fucking finish? Jesus Christ! You were saying that?
Yeah, you kind of put them on an area that already had Lucrehulks on it, so that's probably why the count is as it is.
Yeah, so...
But I did reduce the battleship count in starting forces significantly.
So what we've done here, these aren't units that are all going to be chasing you around the galaxy. There are certain select planets that were given a large defensive fleet. These are units that the AI actually has, but they do not use to attack. Just to make sure certain important planets can't just be sniped early. Like, if you go into the Foros GC in 0.5, and you take your fleet from Foros to Coruscant, usually the Republic AI has moved all their forces away. So you just get a quick battle against a shipyard, and then it's gone.
Yeah, to address the comments, Republic did get Safe Prestige as their economic hero for now, because they kind of didn't have one before.
Yeah. We want to keep Palpatine more behind the scenes until the like Darth Sidious spawn. I wanted to see if we have fighters.
That's probably a good thing.
Could ground vehicles be tweaked? Ground battles take forever between armored units. This is the result of ground battles being tweaked, so you can actually do stuff in them and respond. We have no intention of speeding that back up.
Considering they don't generally take more than 20 seconds for like an A6 tier stuff, it's not too concerning. Like most tank battles with A,
I think
stuff you can kill pretty quickly within the order of 10 seconds for an armored unit.
I think it really depends on the units you're using, because certain armored units, I think it'll become clear once we add in the tooltips that Nemesis has been working on, because a lot of heavy vehicles, a lot of heavy vehicles actually have a lot preponderance of anti-infantry weapons, and anti-infantry weapons in particular do very little damage to heavy armor. You need an anti-vehicle weapon or rockets. Well, I can see fighters, not very many.
Yeah, they're not.
Should be more from that.
Really. Someone managed to break it in the last, 3 hours.
I blame Corey.
I was asleep. I fixed it earlier when someone else broke it.
Ah, yes.
let me see. So where we are, fix fighter spawn syntax, and then I'll go through and see who else changed the game object library.
So when are we
Oh,
doing
no.
a reality show about this, like the development of this mod?
Speaking of the tooltips, we do have a good question in the comments where you guys eventually put the pros and con labels for units for new people to know the strengths and weaknesses of the units.
So using that block in like the strong against, weak against, the 3 squares at the top, that we've talked about different ways to potentially use it, but there's no good information that can really be put in it. Like the mod is too broad. It'd be like listing 3 unit types that it's good or bad against doesn't give you much information, and it just puts the description that far more towards the top, which limits the other actual information we can put in. Instead, we have pretty detailed stats in the descriptions, and then there's also going to be more supporting information in the documentation guides from the Galactic level. So you can see how much damage a specific weapon type does. The armor damage matrices are going to be in there. So whatever amount of information people want to have will be available to them. Like, not everyone's going to want to go that far in depth, but for people who want that kind of information, it'll be there. There'll still have to be a learning curve of like figuring out the exact way they interact. But I even thought about putting like different ship roles into the strong against, weak against thing, but then that's another thing that doesn't get that can't be communicated very well with that, especially because it's just a picture you're trying to get that across with, and it's harder to know when fighting something else what it's going to be. So the people who that information would be meant for wouldn't be getting much out of that information. So it ended up being something that I abandoned after asking Valerie to make those icons about 15 minutes later.
Yeah, we have like 21 total roles for just the starships alone. A little over a dozen for the fighters, and haven't even touched the ground stuff yet. But that's all internal.
Which Lucrehulk variant will the Confederacy Corporate Sector 40 be getting? Is a
Probably
question.
battle carrier.
Yeah, battle carrier.
Oh god.
It's kind of the mid-level one.
Yeah,
it's
the
still
mid-level.
pretty expensive, but their fighters are kind of crap. So.
Oh no, so what was the big bad one called? A battle cruiser?
Well, I mean, they're all the same size, so.
You mean the battleship?
Oh,
Yeah, so we have the auxiliary, which is like the freighter version, the battle carrier, and the battleship, which basically goes from weakest to strongest in terms of raw firepower. But the carrier has all the fighters, so it depends what you want to do with it. As the CIS, you have a lot of choice now as to what you want to do with your Lucrehulks.
They're a good fleet centerpiece.
All right, I'm gonna launch the debug mode and see if I can.
Way ahead of you.
Okay.
I mean, in this case, it actually is a pretty
I'll just go
decent
back to the other one.
identification. The Lucrehulk battleship is a battleship. It has less fighters, it has a shit ton of guns. The battle carrier is a mixture of a battle cruiser and a carrier. It has a decent amount of guns and a lot of fighters.
So thank you, Rhino, for the £5 donation. Damn, Darth Core Unleashed. Also, you added a new ship from TR. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, and maybe make a
Probably
website for the mod.
In the Republic Crossing, which slipped into Era 4. That's like the only added in from TR unit in this update.
Yeah. But there is a website for Thrawn Revenge. Just having a unique website for something at this point in the internet is kind of meaningless and difficult to keep updated. So we have a website, we have forums, no one uses them anymore, and we've stopped updating them. I don't really think we're going to go back to doing that because I already pay to keep them up, and it's a waste of my money right now. There's a wiki as well. Again, no one uses it. It's not something that we're really involved with upkeeping either, and it's not something we'd be able to keep up either. We might do some public-facing versions of our spreadsheets, because that has all the actual information and is one place that we have to keep updated, along with like in-game tooltips, rather than making the same change in 4 places just for documentation. So that's kind of the limit of what we're doing with that. Any plans for more detailed empire/planet management policy, abolishing or introducing censorship, high-low taxation, abolishing slavery? So we're trying to go as far with that as we can with stuff like influence, governments, the stuff that we have implemented in the last few versions, and we want to have unique government styles for every faction in both mods. But that both takes time and has to be stuff that works well with what Empire at War can do. We don't want it to turn into pressing a bunch of buttons on the galactic level to ultimately have a limited impact or just feel like busy work. It has to be something that has some sort of impact in how you play out battles, because at a certain point economic management is just credits. We've tried to do what we can with influence, and we're going to keep expanding the different factors that impact influence, but even the stuff that can influence is fairly limited by what the game engine allows and where we can track influence. So like planet level management of you're censoring stuff here, you're taxing higher there, that is unlikely to be something you can do. It'll be more based on what works for different factions. So there will probably be like a taxation element to probably, for example, the CSA government, whereas for the Empire, on top of legitimacy, there'd probably be other factors like destroying a planet is bad for you. You'd have some options with like opening the Empire a bit more like Pelion did, but it all has to tie into those core government mechanics rather than trying... Like, we're not going to be able to turn the game into EU4 or Stellaris. There's just not the foundations to support that, but we do want to go as far as we can.
The error currently seems to be the same problem we were having before regarding crossplot.
Did someone overwrite the
fix?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Because there was a merge earlier, and I think it got
This is why
reverted.
everyone needs to pull before they push. Even you, Corey. You need to do it, Corey.
There was a merge that someone reverted.
Be careful before he plays that line he just did with "Shut the fuck up." I'm gonna
I
say
can
that.
solidly say I was busy in the lab before and thus was not editing stuff, and it is not my fault this time.
I'm sorry, Nolan. You're to blame.
Don't look at me. I'm
Yeah, it's
just here
okay.
for
We know you don't do encoding.
Oh,
Ouch.
I thought you were gonna go for the insult. I thought you were gonna go, so I was bracing myself for the insult. I'm not gonna lie.
I
Might
heard
be
insult
Henry's
as
fault,
incel. There's like, why is he bracing himself for the incel?
Okay, I know I can't say words well.
Oh, God. Anyway,
Charlie coming on
EAWX game
screen.
object line 13.
Easy fix, at least.
Well,
Hopefully.
if it wasn't reverted, I'm gonna alt tab and check.
Corey, you should once you fix it, you should attack Denon. That's a fun battle.
Which battle?
Denon.
Oh
My
god.
God, Nolan, you really love Denon, don't you? That is
Oh, no,
that is
it's
illegal.
already... Oh, that's concerning.
Oh no.
It's already there. So if not crossplot, then require EAWX crossplot/crossplot is there. And then the error is still saying line 13, attempt to index global crossplot a nil value.
Monday night.
well,
Monday
it temporarily worked. Pox is already gone.
No!
All right. Anyways, we'll just keep playing with Outfighters for now. Munificence used to be useless, but they're less useless now.
Oh, they're a hell of a lot less useless. You should throw a fleet
They're a
of them.
solid damage unit now.
Yeah, they got long range.
Yeah,
And
many
they
of
have ion
the
cannons.
many of the Confederacy ships are very offensive based, whereas the Republic tends to be a little bit more balanced.
We've also changed the damage profile of the Dreadnought quite a bit. Rather than using the original stock laser cannon version everywhere.
It does admittedly still show up as starting forces.
Yeah, there's still some places, but it was a good opportunity to have a ship for the Republic that isn't just laser cannons, which is pretty common in the rest of the roster.
Upgrade in progress.
Will we get a turbo laser variant of of the Providence, since we get 3 Lucre rolls, the Providence has broadside turbo lasers in the movie.
Technically, the specific guns that you see in Revenge of the Sith are the mass drivers, which are a modification on some ships. They're actually present on the hero Providences, but the turbo lasers you see in the movie, the quad mounts, are counted in the stats for the normal Providence unit.
Yeah, and like the Invisible Hand was also where the most proton torpedo tubes are as well. So trying to use that as a basis for a turbo laser Providence would be kind of weird.
And per Western games, the destroyer variant Providences have the same weapon loadout as the carrier one. You just need to infer from the ICS where they just have more reactors for shield and engine power instead, rather than the giant hole in the center of the ship.
Yep. So basically, they
it'd
just
be effectively the same
tankier.
weapon. That's just tankier and faster, and also would need a different model, which we don't have.
Also, thank you, Rampaging Rhino, for the £5 donation. Hashtag blame Charlie. Also, you guys sound like a married couple. I assume that was from me and Bob yelling at each other.
Just the whole team sounds like a married couple.
That's only legal in Utah.
That's
Whole team Utah.
the solution is obviously to move the team HQ to Utah.
No.
That's
I just had to tell Honest and Jacked earlier, I think it was you two, that there's no in-office romances, so... This is coming up a lot today.
It came up more than
Corey
once.
and Bob here are like the married couple, and the rest of us are just, I don't know, adopted kids.
But I thought Rogue and Valerie were the team parents.
This is true. I am the mod
You did
mom.
say Utah.
Did you just say the Mon Mon?
Mon Mom.
Yeah, Mon Mon.
I wonder if Leia ever called her that. I'm sorry, Mon Mom. I mean Mon Mothma.
There's some deep-rooted issues there.
Mommy issues.
I mean, it would not be wrong.
What's
So-
that Republic fleet spawner pretending to be an acclimator?
I try so hard.
I just want to play too.
Me in university.
So I told you guys when I saw that line in Jedi Search that described Rancors as a mix of crustaceans and arachnids.
Let me just say, as the biology student, I was not impressed by that line.
Well, I went on Wikipedia and I was like, am I the idiot? Like, it was just so weird. And then Wikipedia actually attributed that to Star Wars Galaxies, which came out 10 years after Jedi Search. So...
You see now why I have various opinions on Wikipedia and the staff.
Right. Well, Corey, you asked yourself, am I the idiot? And you went to Wikipedia, so the answer is yes.
No, I went to Wikipedia to see where else this was coming up. Because usually it's good for that. It's like half of my datapad videos are like, well, Wikipedia says this, but this is why they're wrong.
God, are you starting a political channel?
Upgrade in progress. Upgrade in
Ah.
progress.
Throw some bullocks in there,
Dead silence.
Corey.
Yeah, dead silence.
Star Wars
No one's
politics.
gonna respond.
Upgrade complete.
What was the one bug that left you red in the face laughing?
The Peltis shotgun in Ascendancy. That was great.
Well, you have to elaborate.
I don't know if bug is right for that. Unintended feature. This-
Unintended feature. So basically,
We have to use that unintended feature for an actual ship later.
maybe.
So in Sins of Solar, I told this story on the Dawn of the Reaper stream earlier this week. So anyone who watched that, which was more people than I expected, this will not be new to. But I'm just gonna spawn an ISD. Yeah. So in Ascendancy, our mod for Sins of a Solar Empire, there's a lot more tech and research in that game. And one of the researches is to add more weapon bank, or more shots per weapon bank to ships, or more targets per weapon bank, rather, is the way it's actually structured. Which is important because weapon graphics in Sins are just graphical. They're not actually projectiles moving around like an Empire War. But the Empire of the Hand had one of those techs that increased the targets per bank. And this was around the time that the Peltist was being added and tested for the first time. So the main cannon was coded as a regular weapon at that point, whereas now it's an ability. Or actually, no, I think it's still a weapon, but we removed that tech. So the Peltist would come out after you got that tech, because there were, I think, 2 tiers to that tech, and start shooting like 3. And in Sin's weapons are essentially perfectly accurate. Dodging is just a fake damage mitigation stat. So the Peltist would just come out and immediately nuke 3 things, and especially with cooldown tech, it would do it just over and over again. This was at the same time as we were testing the Siruvi random events, where Siruvi could come onto the map, take over a planet, put a buff on that planet that spawns more Siruvi, that would then go attack other planets and spawn even more Siruvi, with each planet like every 3 minutes spawning in more Siruvi. And the first iterations of that ability were like, or that random event were incredibly overtuned. So the only thing that saved a testing game, there were 4 of us. It was supposed to be a 2v2, and it quickly turned into 4v Siruvi, and a lot of crying and laughing, and it was painful.
It's no battle, it's a slaughter.
We were all red in the face laughing.
I mean, I imagine the Pelta and then just the gif from Hot Fuzz with the guy loading the shotgun. Shame.
If it was Peltas, that would have been less useful.
Yeah. I think I had like a whole like full PopCap fleet against Miller's, like.
It was me, you,
5
Miller,
Peltas.
and was that Kalo?
I don't think I met Kalo up to that point, so I'm not sure.
You must have met Kalo. Like, the way I used to introduce people to the team was with a private message saying that Kalo says some...
Yeah, I only got that message like after I started doing the art stuff, I think. I think it was just me, you, and Miller.
There was a 4th person. It might have been Scarecrow or something. I don't know who it was,
Maybe.
but there was a 4th person. I used to have a policy of just not opening links from Kalo, because you never knew what was going to be in it.
What's your stand on adding unique squadrons? Like Skull Squadron and other famous clone squadrons? Is a question from the comments.
We'll probably be adding more squadron heroes in the future. Like with the first release, we wanted to just get a core hero roster for each faction, and we were aiming for like 18 heroes each side, and we got around there. But even with that, there was a lot of Jedi have their fighters as well, so we didn't want to use one of those slots on squadrons, especially because squadrons can be kind of weird in Empire at War. So usually they're better off if they have like a mothership. So there'll be a few places where we can add that kind of thing in.
Lovely realization of the station self-destructs and fighter heroes in Fall of the Republic.
That went poorly for people.
About an ICW.
I'm surprised no one picked it up.
I mean, it's been instance vanilla. It's literally it's a vanilla
I know,
feature,
it's a
technically.
feature. And I kind of found it funny. It's like, how do you not move the 8 speed, 8-2 heroes out of the way in the 10 seconds of warning you have? Like, they'll clear the blast zone in half a second if you tell them to.
To be fair, I don't think many people thought of that, because that also didn't get reported in testing either.
I think most of our
else
testers don't
most of the
attack
testers also
stations
are
with,
familiar
true.
with vanilla game mechanics.
True, I'll give you
Don't
that.
use the interceptors against a space station.
Anyway, I've looked into the issues with the fighter spawn, and it appears to be that for whatever reason, when crossplot is initialized in game scoring, it isn't correctly being transmitted so that game objects understand that crossplot has been initialized. So crossplot is successfully initialized in game scoring, but then when it tries to load it in the game object scripts, crossplot doesn't exist. It's still nil.
Republic ships.
Lego mod and Azure Lane mod. When? Is Azure Lane that game that people were telling me to look up that time that I'm...
It's just ship girls, yeah.
Yeah.
The
No.
Lego mod would be interesting.
I think if anyone was going to do a Lego mod, it'd probably be me and Nolan, so...
There's a guy, I saw who was doing
That
like
I've
Lego
made like
3D
Lego
models.
versions of a few dozen EU vehicles at some point probably helps.
I mean, literally, all you have to do is get Lego CAD software like Stud.io or Eldraw, make the models, export them to a model format, clean up the meshes a bit, say screw it, dump them into Empire at War with the appropriate rig, and you're golden. I mean, that's technically all you need to do.
The base.
Yeah, I mean, I already did it. Like, that was one of the first mods I made myself. Was yeah, I made a Lego X-wing and a Lego TIE Fighter, and I replaced the existing X-wing and TIE Fighter in Empire at War with Lego mini. They were the mini Lego model versions. They didn't have like minifigs in them or anything. They were like the ones that made of like 20 pieces.
Okay, so not the ones that had Lego minifigs on them either. Those are the dumbest ones. I hate them.
I actually think
What are they called?
microfighters
Battle sets?
are indeed dumb.
Bobby,
Microfighters are dumb.
Have your head for that one. You're coming back with some Viking ships to England.
Matthew Moore is asking, I noticed that the ground battles in Thrawn's Revenge need much improvement. Are you going to work on that too? So when we did the ground reworks for Fall of the Republic, they were also done for Thrawn's Revenge. Just there hasn't been a version of Thrawn's Revenge released since before Fall of the Republic.
We also haven't
working
tested
on getting
them
that.
as thoroughly as the FOTR ones, so that'll definitely need to happen before they go into any public release.
I don't know. I think we just give them to people and see what happens. It'll be about the same as current ground, to be honest, in that case.
So we're releasing Fall of the Republic 0.6 on Thursday. And then for 0.7, we're going to be deciding more on the content side of what to do. There are some other reworks that are going to be happening. But the focus, as soon as 0.6 is out, is going to be on Thrawn's Revenge, getting a lot of the stuff that we've been doing for Fall of the Republic fully implemented, so the space reworks, finishing them off for Thrawn's Revenge, getting stuff like the documentation on the side of the screen on Galactic level properly implemented, fixing some of the bugs there, and getting 2.3.6 out. I think it's 2.3.6, but so stuff like the space reworks, the ground reworks, the new mod framework, which isn't really something you notice in game, but aside from the cross-plot issue we're having right now, does structure things much better. But,
it's okay. This is kind of Pox's fault, so none of us need to feel too bad.
It's part of the reason why we do have the performance increases that we've been having. We've streamlined a lot of the stuff on the back end. We do have a question from the comments. Will the New Republic be able to use the Dauntless Mark III like in the lore?
The Dauntless Mark III or the Bulwark Mark III? I think they mean
the
Bulwark.
The question is the Dauntless.
They said Dauntless. The Dauntless Mark III specifically is a ship that's on the Fennon Wiki, so I'm going to say no to that. If they mean the Bulwark Mark III, then
no to that.
It's not,
yeah.
It's
like
not
one of the
impossible that they get one as a starting forces in a historical, but they wouldn't be on the roster.
Yeah,
basically, poor Praetor's range was not helping it, and it got stunned into fucking oblivion multiple times.
Yeah, so now the entire back
is
end
half the cooldown of the weapon, but if it's taking hits from both sides because it's turning and flopping.
It's inside now.
Fairly.
It's inside you.
Floppy with a $5 donation. Not sure if this is a strange request, but have you considered including the D-Wing droids and Fall of the Republic from the TCW episodes in the future?
Google time.
It's those flying battle droids from the latest episodes of season 7.
Now.
Spoilers.
Thanks for
the
spoiler.
Spoilers for the thing that have been out for storyboards, concept art for like.
I mean, I don't think flying battle droids are a particularly novel concept, so I don't really.
Or is there?
My day's
like.
They fly now?
My deployment is immeasurable.
It was like the worst reveal.
My day is ruined.
It was the worst reveal in the episode. They just suddenly got up and flew, and I was like, "Is someone just going to quote the Rise of Skywalker trailer now? What's going to happen?"
It's not just someone quoting it. They actually just took the audio from Finn.
Oh god!
Just play it in the background.
Yes,
that's what it felt
you'd
like.
think the Stormtrooper would be familiar with the concept of military jet troopers, which even in Disneyverse have existed for hundreds of years.
Bacon Acorn was asking, has anyone else had issues with disconnecting when entering battle on Renvar? If land battles are going to desync a lot in the currently released version because they're running a lot of scripts for the legions. We're changing that, and it should happen less. Matthew's also asking, will you change it so torpedoes bypass shields? Absolutely not. There are multiple reasons that are those are not like that, and those have not changed.
Yeah.
Have you shown off the Tector yet, or the other ones? Sorry, I just forgot.
The other ones?
I just completely.
Tector and Secutor, he was asking, because Proto
just the ISD
responded to those in testing.
Okay. Yeah, they're.
I mean, they're technically done in TR. Just make them fight normal MC80s and MC90s, because those are also rework done. So if you could show that off, that'd be okay. But don't use the Nebulas or ADBs, because those haven't been reworked yet.
Yeah, so we're in TR right now. It'll be a lot less done. I just wanted to take a little bit of time to show some of that.
The majority of the small ships are done, because they're generally simpler rigs and stuff. But yeah, Nebulas, Endurance, stuff like that have not been.
Well, we've also got the new Marauder model, which Farshot did the model, I did the texture.
Yeah.
It was previously a base game.
Afterwards.
Upgrade complete.
I've seen a lot of questions about unique units for different planets, like militias and special
something
units.
we said we definitely want to do. It's going to be future content. It's just not high priority.
It's the kind of thing we're doing with influence, not just I've captured a planet and now I can build everything from that planet, because that's usually just kind of lame and then results in weird spamming. But
cookies.
Dauntless, MC90, MC80 Liberty, and Home Ones are done. Home Ones might need a bit more HP balance-wise, but just for New Republic capitals. Oh, BACs are also done, so you can use those. Just don't use the ADB, Nebula, or Endurance.
Any new abilities planned for space units?
Upgrade in progress.
I heard some mentions of that micro jump thingy, which was like one unit using.
Yeah, so Empire War is fairly limited in the kind of abilities you have to work with. We're doing what we can with them, and there's also, we want to spread out more stuff like the micro jump ability that is only in one place on the Vigilance in the Empire of the Hand. So that's all. Abilities where the next focus is for it, for the reworks. But again, it is an area that Empire War doesn't do particularly well, especially coming from working on stuff like Sins. What got deleted there? Can you release a patch that turns all ships into Gongtroid model? That's a lot of rigging.
It would be worth it though.
Yes, Commander.
All right.
Okay.
So good
So
volunteering.
the good thing is, I think there is a syntax error still in the game object library.
Epic. That's what you like.
Because when I collapse the units level in Notepad++, it only collapses down to the Republic boarding shuttle. Spoilers. Not real spoilers. Not real spoilers. It's not real. So there's an error there somewhere. So now I get to just go through and see where that error is. Yay. Generic Acclimator Assault Ship Leveler.
Hardpoint differences on the Secutor and Tector.
Oh shit, are you guys working? I thought we were just sitting here and chilling. Oh shit.
So this is the Secutor's current layout. And
where's the Tuscan League? Are they safe? Are they alright? Question from the comment.
They're still dead, but because we're using the thrust ship model for the damage for the target dummies, they're getting more screen time than ever.
Wow.
Accurate.
Yes! Fixed!
That's cold, but accurate.
Oh, there's fighters now?
I'm just going to make sure there is.
There's fighters now.
They have fighters now.
Specifically worth mentioning because they got a general overhaul of stats compared to the old version. It's very
Tectors?
Functionally, yeah.
Yeah.
They're a bit more functionally different than just something between an ISD 1 and 2 in terms of firepower, like they were before.
Wait, are there still not fighters in ICW? TR, whatever.
Yeah,
we're
there aren't.
Yeah, there aren't in TR.
Oh my god.
And it's a different script, so...
It's entirely
it is
possible
possible
someone
we just
left
didn't
a
fix-
syntax
we didn't
error
put
in that one.
Into...
Swear to God, why doesn't...
In progress.
Calm down.
Why don't people test before they push?
Yes, that's another thing people should do.
Welcome to a day in the life of modding.
We need to keep the testers busy somehow, right?
Lasers are our target.
Yeah, this is the job secured.
Yeah.
Our target fire
Right. The Empire of the Hand
push,
stuff
push,
hasn't
push.
been touched at all. I just kind of wanted to send a
Oh no, yeah, no, it's completely...
lasers are
It's
our
completely unmodified.
Yeah, no, I've literally avoided touching the Empire... Okay, no, it still isn't working. That means it's probably...
The Antigo is going to be the first Empire of the Hand ship to get statted out with the reworks.
Well, Peltas technically was done before, because it actually has a new model also. Or it's at least a newer design.
Well,
with
it
small
hasn't
gun count
been.
coded.
It just hasn't been coded. This Antigo will be the first one to actually get coded because the rig for the Peltas would need to change more, and the Antigo needs to get a rig.
take out the iron cannons.
When is this update? So the 0.6 update is going to be on Thursday for Fall of the Republic, and it'll have all that.
Provided we fix the fighters.
And we break it and fix it on a daily basis. It's nothing new. But the Thrawn's Revenge side of it will probably be after that. Definitely be after that. It's not coming out tomorrow or Wednesday, but we just don't have... It won't be like forever from now. It'll only be it's more measured in weeks than anything else, but...
So in time, basically. That's what you're saying.
Well, it's not going to be like at the end of the year or something. It's going to be
Form up.
ideally very soon after. I just don't want to commit to any specific time frames.
Here's a fun question from the comments. Will the Nebula New Republic Star Destroyer get a buff? Will the MC90 and MC80B be kept the same?
I kind of mentioned this towards the start of the stream, but trying to compare stuff directly to where they are is pointless because the entire system is different. It'd be like saying that something got a buff or a nerf between like different mods because like everything is different. It's not really a direct one-to-one thing. Like the power level of the Nebula compared to other stuff is probably slightly higher than it was before, but there was also different factors that fed into that, like the fact that stuff couldn't always shoot directly up and down properly, which impacted a lot of the a lot of the in-combat effectiveness relative to the stats. So just stupid stuff like that in range throws it off so much more than even just the stat changes do. So it's impossible to give a good answer on a lot of that.
Flip a coin, you'll be right 50% of the time. On the is it more or less powerful metric, anyway.
Also depends where you base the comparison point.
Yep. I mean, technically, Lancers are coded in, I think, and Tartans and stuff, but
Yeah, Lancers.
there's not really anything for them to shoot at.
Tonfalks, Strike Cruisers, MTCs, Gladiators, Vindicators, Enforcers, Mobilizers. Generally small stuffs. Small stuffs, generally.
Anything between both mods and then some additional small stuff.
Yeah. Well, a fair amount of the small units that had existing rigs that work. So all the Corvettes, the Corona, Sashin, DB-20, Bothan Salt Cruiser.
Destroyer here.
Yeah, again, of the New Republic stuff, the only things not done there are the Viscount, which no SSDs have been done, and the ADB, and the Nebula and Endurance. The rest of the units there you can use for New Republic battles. Oh, and the Majestic.
Thank you, Rhino, for the £5 donation. I get it because when you overhaul something, it's hard to explain until it's being played. It's more like asking if stuff has been buffed or nerfed with the reworks is kind of like if you paint a room and someone asks, is it more or less green? Like, if you change it from green to orange, you can technically say it's less green, but that's not really giving any useful information.
Copied.
So that's the weirdest analogy I could quickly think of for that. And
Yeah,
I
generally
like
we
it.
try to filter out some of the fan perceptions of where they think the unit should be. A good example is the Venator.
Where actually it should fight a flotilla of Lucrahawks on its own.
Dems fighting words.
But
If you want to
it
take
is one of the reasons why we did develop the ship roll stuff, so we could get an idea of, okay, if this is what it's good at, then this is also going to be where it's going to where it's going to be bad, what we need to alter, shift to make it work within the factional roster, etc.
Open fire.
There's something really messed up with the leveler fighter set.
With the leveler?
Yeah, there's something. The fighter set coding is just.
I thought we got rid of the leveler. Am I thinking of a different?
You're thinking of like the ICW version of the Acclimator that was like a mixed refit between every other version of the Acclimator. But what are your opinions on unique economy buildings for certain planets? Spice mining to bond gas, not planned, definitely will not be implemented, will conflict with economy work. So there will be different buildings eventually, but we don't want to do a bunch of unique ones like that because we have to. We're generally trying to scale and come within a certain amount. And if there's a bunch of planets you can take that always give you extra economic structures on top of the basic ones you can build, then it's very easy to have income snowballing, and snowballing on the galactic level is a big problem in Empire at War. So a lot of our economic stuff is built around making sure that for smaller factions they're still viable without making it too snowbally for large factions. And unique structures like that, unless you're very careful with how they're implemented, end up being more on the snowbally side of it. So it's a lot more of a gameplay downside compared to the upside being just that you have that unique structure that you've built, so it's not even that engaging for the upside of it. Will you add any administrator heroes to the Republic? CIS is much easier because new gunray and more discount buildings. So they already have one, say Pestige.
They got Prestige this update. So
yeah. We had a very tight run election. There were accusations of collusion between various Republic administrator figures. We're holding an internal investigation.
Quet did not do well in the polls at
all. One thing to mention with New Gunray is that his economic bonus no longer applies to the faction influence when trying to consolidate the CIS.
That's very impactful. So yeah, it used to be very easy to just spam the upgrades wherever Newt was and you'd integrate sooner, but now you can't do that.
We have stopped supporting Galactic Conquest multiplayer. Will missions be added to Thrawn's Revenge?
Yeah, so the random missions will be in both mods. The ones that are in Fall of the Republic, they're going to be expanded out, and we want to have some more that are like faction specific as well. But the narrative elements of the mod are definitely something that we want to expand, and both like specific scripted missions, so like Operation Nightfall when you do Order 66 is something we want to be actually in the mod. And whatever else we can come up with for that. There's a bunch of stuff we've talked about and have planned, and that is going to continue to be a focus. But yeah, so on the Galactic Conquest multiplayer thing, multiplayer in Empire at War, Galactic Conquest especially, doesn't support XML story scripting at all, and it's very limited support for Lua scripting, which doesn't support several of the Lua functions that are important for certain things, and Lua scripting also causes issues with desyncs. So it effectively means we can't put any of the mechanics we've added for the mods in Galactic Conquest multiplayer, including stuff as simple as the build bar filters. And any UI changes we make can't be used because that's all based on story scripting. So any change that we make, we then have to basically do a bunch of extra work to make sure we can get around ourselves if we want to do multiplayer Galactic Conquest. The entire tech system can't work, like the air system. It's a lot of work for a game mode that people might play for 5 minutes and then say, okay, well, this was probably shit is the word they're going to use after that, and then never play it again. because it desyncs immediately. It doesn't have any of the mechanics that allow us to get around Empire at War's inherent balance issues in Galactic Conquest. Like, you generally end up doing one battle, and then someone has a clear advantage and you already won at that point, just play skirmish. And yeah, there's just no real upside to doing it. Saving works maybe 10% of the time. It's a huge fucking headache for a terrible game mode that the base game barely supports, that none of our features can support.
So sad.
But yeah. Does the Allegiance still have the limited firing arc on its main turbo laser batteries? So the biggest issue that firing arcs had in the mod were vertically, actually. Horizontal firing arcs are typically limited a bit by the ship you're using, but I'm just going to spawn in some old... None of these have been reworked yet. I'm just going to kill some stuff. But in order to get around the fact that ships are on visually different Z layers, I'm, of course, using 4 ships that are not right now, and completely undercutting my point. But a lot of the firing arc inefficiencies were from the fact that if something was like down here, a ship up here wouldn't be able to shoot it, and it would seem like it was a problem with either its range or its horizontal firing arc, when really it was just unable to deal with what is essentially just a graphical effect in the game. So everything now can fire 180 degrees up and down, no matter what it is. Well, I won't say everything. I think everything, but there may be something that doesn't. But that's what it's essentially designed around now, so there shouldn't be as many issues with that kind of stuff.
And the space reworks did include a lot of reorienting the firing bones. Some of them were turned the wrong way, stuff like that.
Yeah, that was fun for development night.
Will you add new capital ships for each satellite, the Belarus and Hagen and other new class ships, and maybe pirate vessels?
So the Hagen will be in at some point because fleet tenders are a thing now, but a lot of the other new class ships are problematic because of Kraken's threat dossier. The one place they get shown is effectively non-canon. Like, it did its best to make sure it conflicted with everything with its visual depictions of ships, so we'd end up having to design them from scratch for a faction that already has the most ships in the mod. Usually for the New Republic, when we're adding stuff, it's going to be more oriented towards the Yuzon Vong War and afterwards. So it's not impossible that other stuff from the new class project will be put in, but I wouldn't say it's especially likely other than the Hejin. But yeah.
Yeah, the New Republic, we do have the most choices when it comes to what we want to fill out the roster. And because they are technically something of the hero faction, they are easily going to have the most balanced roster across the board.
And they just get so much from other people.
That is true.
Any chance to get something similar to a 2.2 manual, not in size, but for easier information access without the need to start GC mode? When we're done certain reworks, then we'll probably start a public-facing copy of a lot of our spreadsheets, which have all the information you could really want, all the information we have that we can give. So that'll be a thing. And how much rework is the MC80 getting? I know it's getting a model change at least. So it's getting a complete visual update, but also, just like everything else, like every stat has been entirely done from scratch. So it's...
Yeah, we built it
Just
from the
for
ground up.
Reference for new people. A lot of the units in ICW haven't quite been done yet, especially the larger ships. So ADB, Nebula, Endurance, Majestic, Allegiance, stuff like that.
What about Superstar Destroyers?
Oh, we haven't.
Don't even talk about those.
They're gonna be fun.
Trying to find a stat system that works for those has just been a pain.
Yeah. Right now we have executors at like 1/16th power or something like that compared to what they should be.
What they should be in system.
Should.
Yeah.
Inverted commas.
It doesn't help that you have a ship that basically ranges in like 4 orders of magnitudes effectiveness depending on author.
Yeah. When you defend or the ship's less spread out now, I sometimes get ships on the opposite side of that. There's not really much we can do about that. That's base game limited. Like, there's usually one marker, and then the game organizes them how they organize them. We can't really...
Slaps them in a giant circle.
Is there a possibility you guys will make an Old Republic mod? Is there a possibility? Yes. Well, you had small local pirate factions and ships for local planets like Huts or Corellia. We talked about this a bit earlier, but there's not going to be pirate factions. There's no faction that would really make sense. Even
in
like,
Father Republic's stance, and Huts are the closest thing for both mods.
And like the planets that get picked for Galactic Conquest are picked because they are important for either the story or specific factions. And like, there's no pirate group that can stand up to anyone, so militarily they're not really a factor. Like, the kind of stuff that would be represented is stuff that already is, like the MZ98 whatever, where Jasmine Akbar died. Spoiler alert for anyone who haven't read X-Wing. But we're not looking to throw a bunch of pirate factions or anything like that everywhere. And
that being said, the two that you did mention, the Huts and Corellia, are slated to be actual factions.
Yeah. And we mentioned a bit earlier, but for like planet-specific units, there will be those will generally be done as influence rewards, like we did with the Mandalorians already. The Duskin League ships, I believe, you can get as influence rewards. Like, there are a few like that already. Haven ships, there's a couple options for that, as well as like the vassal system, but they're also going to be their own playable faction, and then Huts and Corellians are also going to be their own playable factions. But yeah. Will there be more variety for the Enter ships? Be the sacrifice of the powers for those ships? Will the more variety for the New Republic ships be at the sacrifice of power for those ships? So variety wouldn't really impact the power of the individual ships. Like, there's still the direct scaling between pop cap, cost, and the ship's power. So the fact that the Republic is as well covered in its roles as it isn't going to like reduce the effectiveness of individual ships, because ultimately every faction has like some sort of coverage on the roles. It just changes how those factions play. So for the New Republic, it's more about their play style that gets changed there more than balance. It just means they're usually more of a generalist faction, except for early, where they're a lot more fighter focused.
Right, they are able to much more easily have more varied fleet compositions, whereas the Empire of the Hand generally has a lot of speed, with the ships being more defensive. Pentastar has a lot of
fighters.
Right, I'm seeing a lot of more ship-to-ship and some interdiction. Greater Madrud does seem to have a good, strong thing of carriers across the roster. Zinjin has a lot of offensive stuff, and those are going to affect how the factions play.
If anything cool shows up in Clone Wars Season 7, will you consider adding it to Fall of the Republic? Also, would any potential NPC Mandalorian content use any designs from the Clone Wars? Mandalorian stuff, Clone Wars content is definitely fair game. For Season 7 stuff, I don't know that we're really going to see any new designs for anything like those droids that we were talking about earlier. Was stuff that was kind of spoiled years in advance.
Like 5 years ago, concept art and storyboards.
Yeah, we're not really going to get surprised. I doubt we're going to see much in the way of like new content as far as that goes. If it does, then that kind of stuff we'd probably consider fair game. Story elements would be more questionable, but just because of whether they change stuff from when it was still tying into Legends to now, it probably shouldn't be an issue. But yeah.
Is it possible to toggle the paths where it shows where the ships are going to go? You can do that edit yourself, but we generally keep the paths on because the pathfinding in EAW is
fantastic.
Atrocious.
Oh, yeah, no, that one. The other one, sorry.
The other word that starts with an F, Corey.
Fucking awful. Will the Air Adventure get its super laser it gets later on during the Yuzon Vong War? So when we cover Yuzon Vong War content, we'll probably have that
Yeah, another
represented in some
version of
way.
it, because it has like 4 stat variations already, depending on the GC.
Booster
Wait,
Tarek
it
is
gets
the
a
most
super laser?
overrepresented. Yeah, Booster did a lot of illegal shit that should have been looked into a bit more by the New Republic.
Upgrade complete.
Like, the amount of prestige within the New Republic that, like, basically cocaine smugglers got
Upgrade
turned
in
really
progress.
weird.
Yeah,
Upgrade complete.
because people like the Han Solo character types, ignoring the fact that they're actually drug smugglers.
Complete.
Not just a drug smuggler. It's not like these guys are just, like, bring around weed or something.
Progress.
Like,
Upgrade in
Spice is some serious shit.
And it's like backing the Empire, which, you know, multiple slave species, cybernetic Borged up ridden super soldiers. This isn't good.
They're not just like these swashbuckling rogues.
progress. Upgrade complete.
Oh, Star Wars. Are you thinking about adding a hard point for the big gun and the Nebula when it's reworked? All those would be they're already technically represented in the armament. They'll continue to be represented in the armament, but the hardpoint locations will be better to kind of show what they're supposed to be. Like, Fractal Sponge likes to make what are essentially regular weapons to have really large turrets, and you kind of got to take that into account when doing stuff.
The Nebula stats do have its single large turret accounted for in the reworks, so
yeah.
Yep. And it will
it's
be
got a
slow
nice
firing.
laser mount. Yeah, long range though, so
So, super laser for the Asserter one.
Upgrade
No.
complete.
And
Wait, no.
the Asserter stats are just gonna be
Have fun rigging that.
Ugh.
Cough, Bob. Cough,
Can you just
cough.
like, Corey, when you model it, can you just not include the turrets in the design?
If you remove the turrets from the Asserter, there's nothing
It
there.
That's like every other SSD.
No, like the
I mean,
Executor,
I'm not
there's
wrong.
stuff there.
There's a cityscape.
There is no turrets with the Executor, and it still
You
looks
could-
like
you
something.
You can make an argument that the hull bumps are the octuple barbads on an ISD2. Just really, really impossible to see at the usual detail scale, but yeah, that gets messy.
I think I saw that, no. God. At that point, the Asserter would just become the Legolate or whatever it's called.
Legator.
It's Legolas, actually.
Okay.
Will the Empire get ships
I-
that help in the Vong War or increase damage for more power behind the scene layers because Dome Basils? We're not going to be like increasing the stats of Imperial ships just because it's later on. Like, they're still balanced similar ways, except for in instances where there was an actual increase or an actual change to it. So like the Galactic Alliance
variants for
ISDs,
stats.
yeah, will probably be like the Mon
scary.
Mothma and Elegosa Claw variant, which were all interdictors and weird, but but yeah, like the new ships they get will be statted appropriately. So depending on the era that we go into,
And there is generally, even if slight, a power creep for stuff as eras go on.
yeah.
So yeah,
But that's also
Not
stuff
like
that's reflected
super
in their
drastic
PopCap
often.
costs and stuff.
yeah.
So you're not going to be like getting like an 8 PopCap ship in
It's
Era
always
1.
going to be
Yeah,
an 8.
no matter how
it
late
might
you
be
go.
comparatively smaller visually, but not in.
Would you add the
add
procurator or mandator for the Republic?
The Mandator is one of the ships that's definitely slated for some point. Hopefully
Oh
sooner
my
than
God.
later. Procurator we'd like to do as well, but we
just
aren't going
both
to be
require
using
designs.
Fractal Sponge's designs for anything. The only Fractal Sponge designs we use are the official ones. Anything outside of an official design, even if a very prominent fan rendition of the ship exists, it's still something we do ourselves. I'm honestly not a huge fan of Fractal's Procurator. And by that I mean I
It's
strongly
too-
dislike it. But
It's too big, and it looks like a Tango ship because he has different style to company guides than official authors used. Like, he counts as Praetor as Corellian.
yeah, and this is another example of that when you add Pride of the Core like Republic of War. So we are not using that design for the Mandator. It looks like a bumper car. That is a fan design that a lot of people have ended up thinking is canon
To
And
the point where it got used in First Order artwork because some artists probably
someone just
Googled
Googled it. So thanks,
Mandator.
Marvel. But the other thing with that is that the Pride of the Core is a completely fanon instance of it as well.
Yeah.
So
We don't know.
we're not using that name.
Names for any Mandator 1 or 2 issue ships.
Yeah, like at
With a
most
number
it'd show
of
up
them.
in the naming file or something if we wanted to make a reference to it because it is such a prominent fan thing. But you're not going to get a hero Pride of the Core or something, and that's not going to be the representation of the Mandator.
Instead, it will be the disappointment of the Outer Ring.
That's actually what they call Anakin.
Oof.
But yeah, the big
Shame
hold up
the
there
ring.
is that I just haven't drawn anything yet.
Yeah, get back to work.
I think
A lot
actually
of stuff on your
Starshot
plate
is
and
trying
forget me.
to sketch a Mandator, so it might be the first non-Valerie concept in a while.
Oh god.
Because you've only got 17 other factions to do concepts
I
for.
mean,
so-
Starshot's done a good job concepting stuff just for details before, so
Yeah.
I have hopes for that.
What about the Maelstrom?
And
That's another
time to
thing
watch a
that
Venator
needs
flotilla die.
the Maelstrom is another area where the thing is like we want to do it. It's just waiting on making a concept.
At least I did get a list of every official detail for it, which should presumably help whoever has to make that concept.
Yeah. And my good friend Eckhart's Ladder, his rendition is not one that we will be using.
Wow.
Any news on Operation Nightfall missions or Era 1 and 5? Again, we spoke about that a little bit earlier, but Operation Nightfall will probably be one of the first missions to get done. It's mostly map, and we just need to have like the generic Jedi coded as well, which is something we haven't done yet, but will be coming. Era 1 and 5 are mostly going to remain unused for a while until we know exactly what we want to do with them. They're just there as placeholders for now. Era 1 stuff, if used for anything, would probably just be historical battles, and that's not going to be focused for a while because that is so self-contained. But yeah.
Future proofing.
There's a non-zero chance of making an Infinity's GC or something, but that's also, it need a lot of planning, and there's other things that are more important to get done first, like other historicals than Forest.
Upgrade in progress. Upgrade.
Okay, anyway, I need to head off, guys. It's been fun.
Right. Bye, Bob.
Alright.
Thanks for joining, and also for working
It was a
on
blast.
space and stuff.
Yay. That's
Working
my
space,
job.
Bob.
Literally.
Are you gonna go cry about the cross plot right now? Because you can tell us if you are.
No,
I'm
it's
probably
Pox.
gonna do
Pox
it.
is kind of crying about it a little bit right now, so...
Oh, is he in the Discord?
Yes.
Going back to
Okay.
Evil Fortress to plan the next evil AI movements.
Yes.
Yes.
Or
good.
work on his dissertation? Either one. You know.
Yeah, whatever works. Okay, thanks, guys. Take care.
See you, Bob.
Later.
See ya.
Bye.
Will the Empire be able to build a Vengeance-class Super Star Destroyer?
Upgrade.
Generally, we do try to keep the Super Star Destroyers more relevant to the Imperial Warlord factions, just
Pentastar
to
has one
help keep them
reference
different.
currently.
Yes.
Our lasers are
It's also a
And
really
they are
fucking
good.
ugly ship, so having it spread
Yeah.
out more is not like it might show up as like a starting force or a spawn scripted force in the
Shadowhand, 'cause they
Shadow
have
Hand
three.
GC because but
Shadow Hand, where there's like a few dozen SSDs and the New Republic gets completely slaughtered until they all kill each other because yay Imperial infighting.
can you move
Ooh,
ships
huh.
on a 3D plane while using middle mouse and control? No, that is Homeworld. That is not something Empire War can do.
Okay, Polar Versatility, to answer your questions. The Lucre Hulk, all the ships here are redone for Reworks. So, all the hardpoint stuff changed for every ship type.
Yeah.
Specifically, this Lucre Hulk is the battleship. It's different than the carrier ones that CSN uses also, and CSA will use the carrier style one.
Yeah, so like the version the CSA also has more hard points, but again, everything has different amounts of hard points and has been redone.
Upgrade
But,
in
yeah.
progress.
Will Mandalore stuff be added to Fall of the Republic?
Progress.
The Mandalorians are going to be a faction that controls their Mandalorian planets. It'll
Upgrade.
be more about like infantry on their planets than like a bunch of giant Mandalorian fleets or something, but they will be present.
DHC is in patrol ships, and that's about it.
Right.
Meteor Q carriers.
the launch bay
Alright, well I'm uploading all the new VO for all the Imperial, Republic, soon to be Imperial officers. So let me know what you think about those. Maybe not right now, of course, but...
Will you introduce more ships from the new class modernization program? We talked about that about 5 minutes ago in the VOD, if you want to jump back there. Add a second in Axis. Famous core / outer rim planet in Axis.
I think it was just a weird writing thing, because like I think he meant it more as
they
like,
can be taking a break from the Outer Rim sieges. Like,
yeah,
we know even in Clone Wars, like cross galaxy travel times like a day. You can courier your 2 Jedi over to a different planet pretty quickly if you need to.
I just think it was more of a confusing line
dialogue
than
rather
anything
than any actual reference.
And it kind of makes sense. You don't necessarily want to spread panic by saying, "Oh yeah, the fighting's all the way in the core." But
there is no
I guess
boring
that
boss
wouldn't apply
to
given
say.
she is.
I do
Is the
absolutely love how
space
the missile
rework
barrage is
going
coming
to
out of that
include?
Weapons Dreader looking though. It's just
Is the space rework going to include more new / more abilities for ships that lack?
That's another thing we spoke about a little bit earlier, where abilities are one of the next things that's going to be worked on, but with new abilities in Empire at War, there's only so much flexibility we have. There's some stuff we can do with Lua, with like we've done the micro jump ability that we want to spread out more, the single unit retreat ability, the like deploy interdiction mines is just a different way to do interdiction. But Empire at War doesn't have quite the same tools for new abilities that something like, say, Sins does. So we do want to do what we can with it, and we want to give at least something to most, if not all, ships. But there's only so far that can go. And I want to avoid just having a renamed version of Power to Weapons on every ship as much as possible, because that's just kind of lame.
Yeah, we did discuss this a little bit earlier, but let's go into a little bit more detail about how we plan to spread out what abilities there are and give much more to do in a battle.
Well, there is a spreadsheet page for it right now, but it's still something that
fairly bare bones.
Yeah, like it's something that hasn't received as much internal discussion either. So there's not a huge amount we can say about it now that isn't probably going to change. So I don't know that there's much more we can say about that for the moment. But it'll probably be the kind of thing that gets a dedicated news post kind of covering any new ones that we add, and
it's probably going to get a quick standardization pass to make sure there's no glaring balance issues before release, which will probably be me on Tuesday. But any new overall stuff can be discussed later. Like 0.7 is going to be more content focused, and as Corey said, we can make a news post for it.
Mm-hmm. All right, next question. In Galactic Conquest, you already have certain what-if scenarios like rebuilding the racist kist. Will there be more things like that to further push factions' agenda when playing as them?
Yeah, this is another thing we kind of talked about earlier with government mechanics and
rivers.
Yeah, like narrative elements to GC, but that has been a huge focus of the mod in the last few versions, and the first version of Fall of the Republic, stuff like the Republic Government, Order 66, Order 65, upcoming stuff like Operation Nightfall, which I've seen a few people asking how that is. It's not started yet, but it is one of the first things we're going to be working on. We just need to work on the map as well as get things like generic Jedi in, because it's hard to make an assault on the Jedi Temple before we have generic Jedi, because you need to have something for Anakin to kill. We're probably not going to include younglings for that, for ESRB purposes. Murdering children is something we're opposed to.
It will be sub mod, right?
No. That's gonna be his department.
Is that? What's up, Galo?
It's not going to be officially sanctioned anyway. If you want that, you have to mod it yourself.
Yeah, you can model a bunch of Jedi children if you want yourself.
Yeah, just shrink the main model. I'll make a guide. Don't worry about it. We'll fix it. Okay, no.
Will the Bulwark be able to ram ships like in Wikipedia? Yeah, ram. There's no good way to do ramming in Empire at War. There's a couple garbage ways, but no good ways.
But it happened in the movies.
Will there be vendors that can use SPHAT Blast that can Revenge of the Sith? We're just going to be using that as an ability for Yularen. That wasn't something that all vendors always did.
It's also not really direct ship power increase. You're just hijacking a weapon into one of your secondary bays as a fire arc coverage for the bottom.
Is it possible?
You can redirect
Yeah.
You can redirect your energy into the main turrets for like effective purposes on the top side of the ship anyways. Using that, you're just opening up another fire arc.
But you get a
Same
cool
amount of
beam.
just firepower. Yeah.
Is it possible to make maps that are completely underwater like Mon Calamari? Can EW just not do that? I mean, you can try to visually fake it with like really intense bloom and lighting, but like water is just a plane. It goes above the screen if you just move it up, and there's not like you'd need an entirely different unit set, and then you need like animations of stuff swimming around, which it would have to be entirely new units checking if they're on that map, and there's no good way. It'd look really fucking dumb if you tried to do it. Thank you, MDHNE007. Mehed Neo.
Slap a blue filter on it and call it a day. Add a few bubbles on the screen.
Yeah, it'd be a mess.
I mean, I already tried to push this and I got a really long text on this is why you can't have it.
And then we would have to do all the underwater units, and it'd just be a
There's
whole
not that
thing.
many. There's just a lot that do the
That-
same
that-
thing.
And you gotta have
There's
a
just,
careful
like,
underwater theme.
4 different small submarines that have 2 forward-facing laser cannons in the
Water
Clone Wars.
sound effects, right?
In progress. Upgrade.
Had to have little small fishes swimming around, because fish AI is something with here, right?
Oh, it's Hannes! Hey, buddy!
Oh, Kylo's here.
Maybe we shouldn't do this on the stream, actually. Corey might shout at us again.
He yells
You
at
see,
us a
this is
lot.
how you get the voiceover work for mods.
Yeah, we just start yelling at each other. Everyone on the team gets in a voice chat and starts screaming.
No, that's
And we
recorded
all
and go
play
like,
as
yeah.
different ships when we do it.
What are the dinosaur people? Mr.
Ceruvi, yeah.
Ruby.
Alright, we've been going for about
Yeah, that's
an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes, and we're starting to basically just retread the ground we covered earlier in the stream. So I think we'll probably call it there. For anyone who came late and you still had a question, we tried to answer as much as we can there. But usually if we skip something, it's just because it was addressed early in the stream, and there are a few that I did multiple times towards the end. So if you missed out on the context of anything, and you may just want to watch up from or up to where you started, at least to kind of get a sense for all that. But thank you for joining me, team.
Yeah!
Let's all
Yeah,
let's
I
all
didn't
clap.
know if anything else, I just show off how crappy the Q ship is.
Oh, you want to
Sure.
see the Q
Compared to the
ship?
other
Well,
Lucrons.
it was in the I guess it was in the middle of the other ships last time.
It was not. That was not a good indicator of. I mean, yes, it did die first, but
Can we do a cringy Go team outro?
Oh,
No?
thank you. No,
Oh well.
you could keep that.
It'll be voiceover. Promise, I'll add it right away.
Okay.
I'm gonna add Corey screaming, can I fucking speak? To whichever unit he ends up doing.
We'll just add that to,
I'm gonna fucking. That's gonna get me on like fucking Keemstar or some shit. Mod leader abuses team.
Doesn't even pay them.
Mod leader yells at innocent team members.
At innocent Swedes.
Hashtag the Swedes did nothing wrong.
Oh no. World War II
Side-eye.
flashes by.
Oh god. Cut it! Cut it!
damn it, guys!
Gonna cut it there.
Huh.
It's over.
Cut. We're not keeping that in, are we? We'll edit it in post, don't worry.
Fuck it, we'll do it live.
It's a live stream. There's no post.
Yeah.
Ranger specifically saying we don't even need to try to be cringy.
Yeah.
Oh. That just hurt my feelings.
Corey's about to turn into,
No,
what's
you're
his
right.
name?
Our community does that for us.
Yeah, may as well throw some Victory 2s and Acclimator 2s in there. Show off the high-end Aero 4 Turbo Laser boats that nobody ever gets to use.
Nolan, I swear half the stream has just been you, like, laughing like an evil villain in the background.
I mean, they could start in later eras if they want. Some people do.
But then you actually lose out on the integration sector forces mechanics. Those kind of help.
Yeah. It's very sad.
Are we still going?
Yeah.
Oh god.
Do you not have the stream open?
I do, I just have it muted.
What are you, heretic?
You're usually delayed by like 10 seconds, so that's what I was wondering.
Like in the stream or just in general?
I actually personally function on a 10-second delay. Having a conversation with me in real life is just infuriating.
Corey's about to turn into Bill O'Reilly, we'll do it live! Fuck it!
Oh god.
The best part is Bill O'Reilly tries to deny that ever happened, even though it was on live.
God.
There's a lot Bill O'Reilly tries to deny ever happened that there's a lot of evidence for.
Oh,
so.
God!
Alright, so that's where we end it.
Alright! Close it. Cut it.
Kill it.
There was one last question that will just... Yeah, as a big fan of the Pentastar alignment, is there anything new coming from my faction? Once again, thank you. So the Pentastar alignment will probably get some stuff in the future. The Arido Authority is probably going to be removed in the distant future, so there's a bunch of units that will be put on other factions. And with that, thank you for watching, everyone. Thanks for joining me, team. Hope you enjoy your nights. Goodbye. When is this going to be re-uploaded? This will be available like as soon as the stream is done. That's why I kind of want to avoid going over 2 hours, because that's often where YouTube starts having issues. But bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.